Since I had the encounter with this, I don't know what to call it, entity, ghost, I see things differently. I couldn't believe something like that was real until I experienced it. I started dating Melina 4 years ago. Shortly after, due to our jobs, we had to spend a lot of time apart from each other. It was difficult to meet since we didn't live close to each other either. We decided to spend some time together at her apartment. She lived on the second floor of an old building with very dark hallways. Her apartment door had a small frosted glass window, one of those where you can only distinguish silhouettes through it. The day I arrived to stay at her apartment, I looked through that window and could see a silhouette standing inside. I remember thinking it was her, but just before I rang the doorbell, I heard Melina calling me from the hallway. She said she had gone out to buy some things before I arrived. I asked her if there was anyone else in the apartment, to which she replied no. I tried to ignore that, thinking it was just my imagination, as it's difficult to distinguish things through frosted glass. We started living together, and everything was fine until one night when I offered to make her coffee. While she was watching TV, I went to the kitchen to prepare the coffee. I remember putting the cups on the shelf, but when I turned around, they had disappeared. I opened the cupboard and found the cups there. Thinking maybe I had made a mistake, I put the cups back on the shelf. But when I turned around this time, the cups had disappeared again. I was surprised and called Melina for help. I told her what had happened and asked her to be the one to take the cups out of the cupboard. She handed them to me, and everything was fine this time. I tried to ignore the incident, and we went to sleep. The next morning, while I was brushing my teeth and looking in the mirror, it fogged up out of nowhere. That was very strange because I hadn't turned on the hot water at that moment, and there was no steam coming from anywhere. I immediately left the bathroom and told Melina what happened. We went back together, but the mirror was back to normal. She suggested that maybe I was overthinking things or feeling stressed at work. The next night, while we were sleeping, I suddenly heard someone calling my name. I woke up and heard a strange noise coming from outside. I went to check and saw that the objects in the kitchen were moving and vibrating. I was shocked and rubbed my eyes, but it was real. Everything was moving. I ran back to my room and tried to wake up my girlfriend, but she was in a deep sleep and didn't wake up. I didn't know what to do, but after a while, it all stopped. I was afraid, so I lay down on the bed and closed my eyes. The following night, something even strange happened to me. I heard the sound of something breaking. It was as if someone was throwing kitchen utensils on the floor and breaking them. The noises were so clear that I was sure someone was doing this. I woke up Melina and asked her to check if what I was saying was true and if there was someone in the kitchen. She woke up and we went to the kitchen to investigate, but everything was fine and nothing was broken. Melina was sleepy, so she got a bit rude with me, and we went back to sleep. The next day, I was very disturbed and confused. I wished I had left that place that day, but I did not. That night, I heard the noise of broken things from the kitchen again. I decided not to go out and ignored it. I turned opposite the room door and closed my eyes. Suddenly, the noises in the kitchen stopped, but then something closer could be heard, falling in the living room, then in the hallway, then closer in the bathroom. It was as if something was approaching the room, knocking things over as it went. The final thud was the picture that was hanging on the wall in the hallway in front of the room. The noises were very clear to me. I couldn't believe Melina was still asleep. At that moment, the door opened. Things in my room started falling and vibrating. I turned on the bed and suddenly lost the power to move my hands and legs. I was lying straight with my eyes open. I saw a giant black shadow on the door, and the next second, it was standing right in front of me. Its eyes were red and very big and scary. It clearly said to me, "Get out of here." After finishing saying that, he disappeared from my sight, but I could feel him retracing his steps, exiting through the bedroom door, through the bathroom, through the hallway, through the living room, and all the way to the kitchen. I took a deep breath and sat on the bed. I noticed that Melina was asleep. I mustered up the courage and went ahead to close the door. The next morning, I collected all my belongings and left the house. Melina kept saying that it might have been my imagination, but I never returned to that house. I continued my relationship with Melina for a while, but eventually, we broke up. I had never experienced anything like that before, but now I always inquire if a house is haunted before entering it.
This story is about the time I was possessed by something. To this day, I can't say what it was. I'm just glad I wasn't conscious at that moment. My friend Mia and I work for a multinational company. That time we were sent on a 4-day trip to attend some conferences. The event was held in a very old village with a medieval atmosphere. Upon arriving at the hotel, we noticed it was adapted in one of the wings of an old fortress. The decoration was old and a bit creepy, with a lot of history from the past. Our room was styled in an antique manner, not much renovated from the old fort style. There was a strange picture on the front wall with a man looking up at something that resembled dark fog or a cloud. It was indeed very disturbing. The room had 2 beds, with a space in the middle between them. In the evening, after dinner, we went back to our rooms. Something really strange happened to me at night. Around midnight, I woke up all of a sudden, maybe due to instinct. When I opened my eyes, I saw a shadow, more like a human figure. I thought someone had entered our room and I panicked, but as I tried to move, I realized I couldn't. My body felt paralyzed. I focused on the figure, and it was definitely not human. It was too dark, like a shadow. It started coming towards me, closer and closer, and I couldn't move at all. I wanted to scream Mia's name, but I couldn't speak either. It was as if I had lost control over my body. The shadow looked at me with great curiosity, moving its head closer until I felt it passing through me, and then it disappeared suddenly. At that moment, I regained movement. I jolted up with a mild scream, feeling scared. This woke Mia up as well. She looked at me, sweaty, and taking deep breaths, and asked me what happened. I told her everything. I was in a very bad condition, so she decided to stay awake with me for the rest of the night, as I was unable to sleep. We both spent the night awake until the next morning. The next day I felt unwell, very tired and pale. I went to the conferences because I had to, no matter what, but I felt exhausted all the time, as if I were carrying someone on my back. I knew it was all because of what happened. We asked the company to change hotels due to the incident, but the company failed to make the arrangements in time, and we had to spend another night in the same room. I was scared of encountering the same thing, but eventually I fell asleep. The next time I woke up, I found myself standing in front of Mia, who was looking at me worriedly. She told me that she woke up with a strong grip on her arm. It was me, standing next to her bed, gripping her arm tightly. At that moment, she tried to calm me down and called my name several times, but I stood still for a while until Mia managed to wake me up. I did not remember this part at all. Mia asked me if I had a habit of sleepwalking, but it wasn't anything like that. We were both confused. The next day, I was still tired. We requested again, and this time, the company manages to make the arrangements, and they changed hotels. Again, at night, the same thing happened in the new hotel. Mia woke up because I was gripping her arm. She asked if I was okay, and I asked, "Where are we?" To which she told me we were in the new hotel, that we had been changed. Then I replied, "This is a mistake. I shouldn't be here." At that moment, a shadow exits me and disappears. Then I woke up without knowing what happened. Mia told me what happened. But after that moment, I started to feel better, and everything returned to normal. Apparently, what I think is that I had been possessed by some spirit from the previous hotel. And when they changed hotels, that spirit returned to the previous hotel. It must be a spirit that belonged to that place specifically, to that room. I preferred not to investigate or know anything else about it, because I was very scared. But I've been left with the curiosity of who could have taken over me at that moment.
Subscribe to the channel to hear the strangest stories of encounters with the unknown. I'll tell you the best tales of horror, mystery, and suspense. When whispers and shadows lurk in the darkness, the time for nightmares has come.
I could never forget that dreadful encounter with that shadow. Today, 3 years later, I still can't sleep well. I lived far from the city in a small town. I worked at an old restaurant as a waitress. Everything was fine, and I really enjoyed the job until one night I had an encounter that I never imagined would happen. It was closing time, and I was closing the curtains, turning off extra lamps, and checking every corner of the restaurant to make sure no one was left inside while my other coworkers were doing their assigned tasks. It was a drill for every night before closing, which I knew it by my heart at this point. After finishing from the first floor, I went to the second floor to repeat the same drill. It was all empty and dark as I turned off most of the lights. As I approached to check the bathrooms before closing, I heard some voices inside. I knew that someone was still inside. I knocked on the door to announce that we were about to close and they should hurry up. Nobody replied back, but the voices stopped for a moment, and I left with that. On the first floor, all the staff was moving around, doing their work of cleaning, mopping the floor, and arranging everything for the next day while we waited for the people to come out of the bathroom. Time passed, but no one came out. We were already too late on our set closing schedule, and now everyone was looking at me, trying to convey a message through their eyes that I should go check on them. I went back to the second floor's bathroom door and knocked again. "Hey, are you inside?" I waited for a moment, but nobody replied. "It's the closing time. We're about to leave." And with that, I left again. Another 15 minutes, and nobody came from the bathroom. I was getting frustrated about why the person is not coming out. I could still hear the voices coming from inside. I knocked again, but to no avail. Finally, I decided to enter and check. On opening the door, the voices stopped suddenly, and the stall was empty, with ceiling light flickering in a rhythmic manner. It was giving a very eerie vibe. I was shocked to find the bathroom stall empty, as I knew for sure that someone was inside. I entered the stall and insist, "Hey, anybody there?" After taking a few steps inside, I was now in front of the wall with the switchboard and was about to turn off the light when my eyes landed on something moving in the far corner of the stall. My heart started to beat faster in my chest. In the dark, flickering room, I couldn't make it clearly until the moving body got closer, and then it occurred to me that it was not a human, but something like a dark cloud of human shape, as if a huge shadow was moving on its own without a solid body of its own. My eyes went wide, and my whole body stilled in a sudden rush of dread that flowed through my entire body. My mouth was open, and with constantly trembling lips, I tried to scream, but before I could make a voice out my mouth, that entity rushed toward me. I screamed with every bit of the energy that was left in me and put my arms in front of my face on an instinct while shutting my eyes tightly. I felt like something sharp and hot had made an encounter with the skin at the base of my throat. But before it settled completely, my coworkers from downstairs rushed toward me and asked me what had happened. I was too scared to make a single word out of my mouth at that point. I looked in the direction from where that dark, shadowy figure appeared, but there was nothing, and the bathroom's lights were back to normal as well. My whole body was trembling. Fear prickled over my skin, and I felt as if I couldn't breathe. My coworkers tried to calm me and reassured me that there was no one in the bathroom. They closed the restaurant, while one of my colleagues accompanied me all the time till I was in the safety of my home. I was calmed a bit at time point, but there was this tumbling anxiety that was gripping my heart. I could not close my eyes as the terrible figure appeared again and again in my mind as I tried to do so. I didn't went back to the restaurant for a whole week after that incident. When I came back after that break, I avoided going to that bathroom, let alone talking about that topic. It made me sick to my stomach whenever I thought of going to the second floor of the building. Every day, when I entered the restaurant, there was this unknown dread that lurked around me all the time. It made me think about quitting that job as soon as possible. So after a month of struggling with dealing with my fear, I quit that waitress job. Sometimes I go to the restaurant to visit friends and have a bite to eat. But there is no way I would think of going up to the second floor.